There is a parasite that may be living in your brain right now, not metaphorically, physically. A single-celled organism, curled up inside little cysts in your neurons, that got there through something you ate, or a cat you once touched, or a garden you dug your hands into without washing them after. It is called Toxoplasma gondii, and depending on where you live, somewhere between a fifth and half of all the people around you are carrying it. In some countries, the number climbs past 80%. For most of the last century, doctors believed it did absolutely nothing. You catch it. Your immune system walls it off into tiny, dormant cysts, and it just sits there, silent, for the rest of your life. Harmless, a passenger, but a quiet, stubborn scientist in Prague spent 30 years proving that the passenger may be steering. And the way it does it is one of the most unsettling stories in all of biology. To understand what this parasite does to a human brain, you first have to understand what it does to a mouse. Toxoplasma has a problem. It can live inside almost any warm-blooded animal, but it can only sexually reproduce inside one specific place, the gut of a cat. So the parasite faces a kind of evolutionary puzzle. If it ends up inside a rat or a mouse, it is stuck in a dead end, unless it can somehow get that rodent inside a cat. And what the parasite has evolved to do about this is the part that should make the hair on your neck stand up. A healthy rat is terrified of cats. It is born terrified. The smell of cat urine sends a normal rat running for its life, every single time. No learning required. But a rat infected with Toxoplasma loses that fear. Worse than that, the infected rat becomes attracted to the smell of cat urine. The thing that should mean death now draws it in. Researchers call it fatal attraction. The parasite reaches into the rat's brain, finds the exact circuit that produces fear of cats, and quietly rewires it into something closer to desire. The rat walks toward the cat eats the rat. The parasite gets into the cat's gut, reproduces, and the cycle is complete. A microscopic organism with no brain of its own has learned to edit the behavior of a mammal 100,000 times its size for its own benefit, against the animal's own survival. For decades, that was just a strange fact about rodents. And then, in the early 1990s, a parasitologist at Charles University in Prague named Jaroslav Fleger began to suspect something that almost no one else was willing to say out loud. He had been infected himself. He noticed that he had started behaving differently. He would walk into traffic without the normal flicker of fear. He felt slower to react, calmer in the face of danger, in a way that did not feel entirely like him. So he started asking a question that sounded, at the time, almost insane. If this parasite can rewrite fear in a rat, why would it politely stop at the edge of a human brain? What Fleger found over the next 30 years, working often alone and often mocked, was a pattern that has now been replicated by researchers around the world. People carrying latent Toxoplasma, the supposedly harmless kind, score measurably differently on personality tests than people who are not infected. The differences are subtle, but they are real, and they break down along the same lines in study after study. Infected men tend to become more suspicious, more rule-breaking, more willing to disregard the group. Infected women often shift the other way, becoming more outgoing and more warm. And across both, researchers have repeatedly found higher impulsivity, higher risk-taking, and slower reaction times. Then came the finding that turned heads. Fleger looked at traffic accidents. He compared people who had caused car crashes against people who had not, and the people who had been in serious accidents were significantly more likely to be carrying the parasite, roughly more than twice as likely. The same slowed reactions and dampened fear that send an infected rat strolling toward a cat may be sending infected humans drifting into intersections. A parasite whose entire evolutionary goal is to get a rodent killed by a predator might be, as a side effect, getting people killed on the road. Now, before this tips into nightmare, here is the honest part. The part a careful scientist insists on. None of this is destiny. The effects are small. They are statistical tendencies across large groups, not switches flipped inside any one person. Most people carrying Toxoplasma live full, ordinary, safe lives and never notice a thing. Some researchers argue the personality links are weaker than Fleger believes, or that other factors explain them. The science is real, but it is still an argument, not a verdict. And yet, even at its most cautious, the core idea remains genuinely staggering. There is an organism, simpler than almost anything you can imagine, that may be sitting in the brains of billions of people, gently nudging the dial on how much fear they feel, how much risk they take, who they are. We like to believe that the self is sealed, that your choices come from you, that the person making your decisions is a single, unified you, in full control of the machine. The parasite is a quiet reminder that the machine has other tenets, that some of what you call your personality might be a negotiation between you and things you never agreed to carry. You are not just you. You are you, plus everything that has ever learned to live inside you. So here is the thing I'd actually ask of you. If this rearranged something in your head the way it does mine, take 10 seconds and tell me in the comments, do you have a cat? Have you ever been tested? I read every single one, and the patterns people share are honestly fascinating. And if you want more stories like this, the ones that quietly change how you see your own mind, subscribe and stick around, because the next one might be living in your head too. I'll see you there.